All right, so let's move on now to activity two. And there's two parts of this. We're going to do one today. The first thing to do is, so what they want to do is be able to take a text file, read the text file, and then go through every single word that's in that file, look up what is the value of that word, and then um, give us a sum total of that. All right, so we're going to be writing a method that will be able to extract and do just that. And we'll sum them up, and then we'll be able to return a value. All right, and so if there's a bunch of positive and negative words, that will, oh, it's kind of a middle of a review. I like this, I didn't like that, kind of a thing. All right. So the first thing that we need to do is create that text file. And if you call it simple review.txt, then your code is going to work correctly. All right. And if you decide to come up with something else, you can do that. Eventually, what they're going to want you to do is to actually go out to Yelp or someplace that has a bunch of reviews, and then copy what those reviews actually are. So let's do that right now. So I'm gonna just open up Notepad, and if you're in on a Mac, you're gonna open up Text Edit. Um, well, you know what? I'm just gonna come up with some gibberish here. And so there's my text file. A bunch of words that are on there. None of them, I hope, would show up as, I think there are some single letters that are in there. So if you said, I'm going to give it a grade of F, that might have a negative value. So that should be 0. So as I said, what you're going to want to do is you want to make sure that you save it as simple review.txt. This is going to be saved as a txt automatically, I believe, as a default. So I will just add that name. Capitalization matters. Simple text .txt. Where am I going to save it? Well, I got to put it in the same folder, the same directory as my Java file. So I'm going to go to my consumer labs folder, and it's not showing me the review.java and the other classes, but that's the right one. Here's a text document of the negative and positive adjectives. That's correct. So I'm going to save it into my consumer lab folder. All right, so there we go. All right, mission accomplished. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a new method that will go through that file, open it up as a file, extract all the words out of it, and then loop through that. And for every word that is contained in that .csv file, we're going to be adding the corresponding number to a thing, and then returning that sum total. So this isn't finding the average. This is finding out what is the summation of all of the words that are in that CSV file. Add them all up. What is that number? All right. Um, so what I'd like you to do is to create what is the algorithm. It's tempting just to jump in and start coding away, Dante, but please don't do that. All right. So think about what are those steps. All right. And so come up, and there's going to be more than 2, I'd like to point out. Come up with what are the steps that you think you're going to need to do that. So take a moment, pause the video, and come up with what do you think the steps are in order to do that. Okay. Okay. So what are the steps? I'm going to show you. This is what I came up with. All right. So this was my algorithm for doing that. And it's just going to be. I'm going to use this as a an outline as I start to code. Please don't just copy this and put it in as your answer. um, first thing I got to do is what is getting passed is the name of the file that I made. All right, so it's going to be simpletext.txt. That's the parameter that's passed. I'm going to use the method that they gave us. I'm going to use the text to string. That's going to extract all of my text file and convert that into a string rather. I'm going to create a counter. It's going to be a double. I'm going to initialize that to 0. I'm going to loop. All right, I want to go extract every single word out of that from that string and compare it to that CSV list. Well, the CSV, doing the CSV list, we've already done that. That's sentiment val. That's going to return what is that particular number. So I need to do a little some substring. I'm going to extract something out. I'm going to get the next word, looking for spaces. I got to get rid of punctuation. That's a thing that I have to do. And once I have that, once I feel like I have the word extracted um, by itself, then it's going to be going to that CSV, looking up the numeric number for that particular word. I'm going to add that to my counter, and I'm going to keep going. My approach was to shorten that that string every single time. Their solution was to have 2 iterators, to have a starting point and the next space, and those just march along and kind of move up. And when that value got to the end of the string, then you knew that you were done. I'm going to shorten my my variable. I'm just going to keep doing substrings. That's going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. There is an issue that needs to happen. I need to find out when am I at the last word, because I can't get an out of bounds exception if I were to do that. So what I want to do now is, and then so I've got that. I'm going to return at the very end. I'm going to return what is that some value. We'll see what that is. The string that we created, the text file had no words that were on that list. So it should come back 0, and then we can throw in rotten or awesome or super or something like that. And it was able to do that and test to see whether or not that was going to be acting correctly. So that's my algorithm. Let's get to the code. There we go. All right. So this method is not in here as well. All right, this is a new method that we're going to be writing. We've got public static void main. I'm going to keep that to be my last method. This is, I'll replace that code with code that's going to work successfully after I create this. So what the College Board is asking us to do is to write the total sentiment method. It's a public method. There we go. Public void. No, not void. It's going to return a double. All right, I'm summing up all of the those totals. So it's going to be a double that gets passed, and it's called total sentiment. That's it. Total sentiment. And it's going to take a string as a parameter. And it's important to note that this is the file name. It's not the actual string itself, right? So we created that file that was called simple, what do we call it? Is it this one? Oh yeah, simple text. Simple text is the name of the document. It ends in a .txt. Show file name extensions. There we go. So simple text.txt, I need all of that in order for this to work. So the first thing I want to do is extract, have it go to that file, open it up, and pull out all the words, all the spaces, and I believe it goes letter by letter by letter by letter by letter. So string, I'm going to call this long text. And I'm going to, what we have is that there already is a method that extracts that for us in this particular class, in the review class. It's called text to string. So I'm going to, again, it's a static method, review. It's the name of the class, text to string. And it needs that file name in order to do that. There we go. And that works. Okay, now that the laptop is plugged back in. All right, so I was able to get the text of from that file. That's happening here. Notice that I have an error. The error is that I say I'm returning a double, and at this point I haven't done that. That's the next step. So the next thing I need to do is I want to create a counter that is going to provide me all of that's going to be a double. So double, I'll call it sum total. And I'm going to initialize that to 0 at this particular point. I can, if I wanted, if I don't like having errors showing up, I can return sum total. And that error is going to go away. Okay, so that's really all the setup that I'm going to need to do for this. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to go through, so long text is all the words themselves, and I'm going to go through, for every word that's in long text, I'm going to keep chopping it up, and eventually I'll have one word, and eventually we'll have nothing at all. I need to loop, and what kind of a loop? For loop. I could probably figure out a way to make that for loop work. But this is, I don't know how long that string is. This is an indeterminate number of times. So a while loop seems like a much better choice than a for. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a while loop. And I'm going to say, so I'm going to keep shrinking that long text down. And so I'm going to say while long text length, well, it's greater than 0. Length, right? So keep doing this again and again and again, and I'm going to eventually it will shrink down. So we have to modify long text. If I left it like that, it would be an infinite loop, which is not good. All right, so what I want to do, the next step after this is I've got, okay, so long text is the whole thing. I'm going word by word by word. So a word is going to be defined by a single space. So I want to find where is the next space, and we'll assume that there isn't stupidity in there, like putting, separating all words by spaces. That would be bad, but people write normal English, so let's do that. So I'm going to create a temp. We'll call it word. So I'm going to back up a second. I need to know what is the index of that space. So I'll call it space index. All right, so I need to keep track of where is that spot, and then I can extract out what that is. So it's going to be long text dot index of, and it's a space. And so, hey, there's this big long thing. What's the index of this space? Here it is. And that's going to be a value. So now I want to create that single word. Here's a temp variable, I'll call it word. I want to make a substring of long text, that substring. And I have a definite beginning and a definite end of where I want that to go. The beginning, oh, it's the first letter of the word. So it's going to be, this is going to be a substring with 2 parameters. And the first parameter is going to be 0, start at the beginning. The end is going to be space index. And I need to think for a moment. Substring with 2 parameters. The second parameter is not where I stop. That would be including the space. It stops one before that, which is the letter that I want. If there's a period, I've got a way of dealing with that, the period and the non-letters. So I don't want to add 1 or subtract 1 to space index. I do think taking a beat and thinking about, is that exactly what I want, is going to help you out. So that is what I want it to do. I want to go find the space and get the thing that's prior to that. All right. There's some extra stuff that I will be doing where I'll show you why in a second, but we'll skip that for right now. So now I've got Word. It is a whole thing, but maybe there's some punctuation in there, so I want to remove that punctuation from Word. So now I'm going to call that. So I'm going to reassign Word to itself, basically. Word.review. This is another static method in the review. Remove punctuation. And I'm passing Word as its parameter. So it's going to take a word, do its little magic behind the scenes, remove all the punctuation, reassign Word back into that. So now Word is going to not have any punctuation in it. So that's a good thing. And the next step is to do this. Okay, so now I've got Word. Let's do that. We already wrote some code in our main that was able to acquire what's the value of that. Oh, that's sentiment val with a bunch of x's there, but that's the same deal. And that returns a double. So this is where I want to keep adding to that. So here's sum total. And I could write equals sum total plus this new method that I have, that new reference, but there's a shorthand way, and I don't know if we talked about it very much. So the operators, there's equals and there's addition, but there's also plus equals, minus equals. This is a way of taking the current value of that variable, doing some mathematics to it, and then reassigning. The mathematics is going to be a function of what is this symbol. So I can multiply equals, divide equals, modulus equals, all of those things are going to work. And I'm going to pass sentiment val, but instead of my xxxx, I'm going to pass Word. Right? And all right, so I'll keep doing that. Oh, if I did nothing else, then I would end up with an infinite loop because I'm not doing anything with this guy here. All right, so I need to keep making sure that that's going to go get reduced again and again and again. All right, so here's what I want to do now. I'm going to shrink long text. So long text, similar to what I was doing up here with this guy. So I'm going to reassign it to itself. But I want to get rid of that first word plus the space. And I know what that is. Long text, substring. And whereas in the first time I use substring, I wanted to. I want to start at the beginning. Here, what I want to do is I want to start a particular point. I want to go all the way to the end. So I'm just going to use the substring with one parameter to do that, and that is space index. And again, I think it's smart to think for a moment, is that exactly where I want it to be? Space index is the index of the space. I don't want to start there. I want to start one letter after that. Maybe that too is a space, but I haven't checked that yet. So I don't need I know that the space index is the index of the space. So I definitely want to go one beyond. So I'm going to add one to this. All right. That's going to mean that long text is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Now we are going to have an issue when we do this, but hopefully you're with me at this point in that should hopefully make some sense, right? So, all right, so I'm going to keep looping. I'm shortening long text. It started long, it's going to end up being 0. And I'm going to find out where's the index of a space and start at 0, go to that space, and then I'm going to remove the punctuation from it, find out what the value is of that particular word, add that to my double here, sum total, shorten that up, and we're going to be done. So we're going to run this. It is going to error. Why? Why would it? What's the problem? The problem is this: when I am going through and if everything's going according to plan, eventually I'm going to get down to the last word, and that's the issue. All right. So and it's going to be like where there is no, it will work perfectly if there was always a space at the very end, but that's not the case. And so I'm probably going to get an out of bounds exception when we run that, so that I need to take care of when I get to the last bit. When it comes back -1, I should probably do something else than what I'm doing here. But let's just take a look and watch it blow up, shall we? The other thing that might happen is I could run it and nothing ever gets produced and it keeps on running. It means that I've got an infinite loop. That's something I'm not reducing that effectively. There's always like one last word that doesn't quite get made here. All right, so that could be a little bit of a problem. So on this, I might have an issue down here as well. But I think I'm going to have an out of bounds exception first. So it does compile. Excellent. I didn't make any obvious errors. Let's see what happens. Here's what happened. That's the old one. So my method, I'm never calling my method. That was silly of me. So, whoops. All right. So I'm going to get double answer. Is not going to be. I'm not calling sentiment val. What I'm calling is total sentiment. And the name of that file is not xxxx, it's simple text.txt. Right? Simple text.txt. A confusing name. And I can change this too. So the total rating is double answer. Does that compile? That compiles. Great. right click, out of bounds, right? So what's going on there, I believe, is that space index is coming up with a -1 when it gets to the end. And I'm saying start at 0 and then go to -1. So I need to do a little bit of a test here to make sure that that's not the that's not problematic, right? Um, and then I might also have an issue down here when I get to the end. It always makes sense to me to where do I want to be modifying the condition for my loop. Doing it at the very beginning or doing it at the very end is a smart place to do that. But I need to be careful now because, oh yeah, when I get to that last word, when it comes back -1, well, I can reset long text at that particular point. I'm going to set it to nothing, an empty string. Now it's like it's going to be 0. If it's not -1, okay, now I can shorten it. So I'm going to make an if statement after I create right here, right? So I'm going to want to find out what is that. So if, I'll say if space index say is greater than -1, right? Space is found. All right, so what do I want to do? Um, I want to do two things. I'm going to do this. That's one thing I'm going to do. Because if I didn't do that if it came back, again, if it came back -1 and I called substring with 2 parameters, I'm going to be in a world of hurt. And the other thing I'm going to do is this line here. I'm going to do that as well inside of this guy. So I'm going to convert long text. It's not, I don't feel super comfortable about doing it that way because I'm changing that not at the end and not at the beginning, kind of in the middle. But that will take care of that particular problem. There's an else though. All right, so this whole issue came up when space index was -1, so I've got to do an else. And what I want to do at that point is I need to set uh, word. There is no space there, so there's no spaces from the start of long text to the end. That means that it's just one word. So I can set word. Actually, I want to do this. I don't want to declare word in that variable. If I did this, I'd only have access to word inside these 2 curly braces. So I'm going to create string word here, and there we go. Down here now, what I want to do is okay. So if this condition is not met, space index is -1, that means that all of long text, I'm inside my while loop, so it's got a length, so it's not nothing. There's a series of text in there. Is that but there are no spaces left. That means that word is going to equal long text. All right, so there's no more spaces. We're just, okay, grab whatever's in that and shove it in there. And I also need to modify long text here. If I didn't do this, I'd have an infinite loop. You can test it out and watch the thing bounce back and forth if you want. But I know that there's still one word. There'll always be one word. So I have to set long text. I'm going to set it to nothing. All right. I always like little spaces in between before and after my assignment operators. There we go. So now I've got that, and I believe that is it. Um, I've taken care of that last, what I think is the out of bounds exception. We'll find out in a moment. Um, and I've, word is going to be assigned either to the next word or all of the remaining letters. And I'm modifying long text in both situations. That's important. Removing the punctuation. I'm going to be doing that irrespective. And okay, then find the sentiment val of word at that point, add it to my total, and then we're done. All right. That I think should be what we need. It compiles. Remember that there's just gibberish in there. So this should come back that there's no value. And it works. Okay, that's awesome, but maybe it's just not adding right. So let's get back to this guy, and and here's my simple text. Here's all of the gibberish. Let's throw in super. What does that do? Save it. And run it. And it comes back 0.5. That's awesome. Did it just find the one and stop, or how do we know? Maybe does it go all the way through? Let's throw in another super in at the end. So it should now come back 1.5, right? And it came back 1.5. That's awesome. All right. Do me a favor, code it on your own. I gave you the whole code, but see if you can do it. All right. So it's there. If you get stuck, try not to copy. Just I'm going to pause it and just type like mad, and I'll be a really good typist when I'm done with this class. All right, hopefully that makes sense. Please let me know if you had any questions, if I went too fast. If this is working, great, let me know that. If it's not working, hey, we really need to come together as a class. We can arrange that. I just didn't want to put any more burdens and barriers and whatnot on you guys. So let me know how that's going, and hopefully it's making sense to you. All right. Thanks a lot. Bye.